Hello students and welcome to the study portal. The topic of today's video is cell physiology. What does cell physiology actually means? So cell physiology means the process through which the cell performs its various functions. So in today's video we will cover aspects such as the definition of cell, structure of cell, the organelles which are present in the cell, that is how the cell is made up, and basically we will focus mainly upon the functioning performed by the cell, the various functions that are performed by the cell such as diffusion, osmosis, tonicity. By the end of this video you will able to understand the different functions performed by the cell as well as the mechanism through which the cell performs its various functions. You will be able to understand the terms or the terminology such as diffusion, osmosis, tonicity, mechanism, etc. So without delaying, let's start the video. The first thing that should be clear in the mind is what is actually cell. So we all are aware with the fact the cell is the structural and functional unit of life. It is the basic unit of a structure that has a structure and function as well. Alright, so cells can be classified on the basis of the living cell or the composition of nucleus and well-bound nuclear membrane, as well as an organism can be classified into unicellular or multicellular on the basis of its structure of the cell present in the organism. So if an organism have a single cell or one cell, then it is termed as unicellular organism, and if it has multiple or millions of cells, then it is called as multicellular organism. Alright, cell arises from other living cells and it does not arises from any non-living matter. Here in this picture you will be able to see a structure of human cells, that how a human cell is looks like. Alright, so it has a nucleus in the center which is then covered by the liquid or fluid which is called as cytoplasm. In cytoplasm you can see the different cell organelles suspended, and the cytoplasm is bounded by a membrane called the cell membrane or the cell wall. So this is basically the structure of human cell. Now talking about the cell theory. Cell theory was developed by Robert Hooke. He was a scientist. He researched and gave a theory called cell theory. In his theory, he told that cells are the building blocks of all plants and animals. Alright, he also told that all cells come from the division of pre-existing cells or the living cell material. Alright, so cells are the smallest units that perform a vital physiological function, and each cell maintains homeostasis. A process called homeostasis is maintained by the cell. Homeostasis is the condition through which an organism is able to maintain its body temperature, its regulation at different temperatures or in different conditions. So it is maintained by the cell. So the cell theory was given by Robert Hooke, and these all postulates are included in the cell theory. Moving on, now talking about the structure of cell in brief, let's just focus on the structure of cell, that how the cell is, all the organelles of the cell look like and what it is made up of. So first of all, talking about the organelles. So organelles are small structures which are present within the cytoplasm that carry out different functions. Alright, so all these parts of the cell which are present in the cytoplasm are called as organelles. Alright, so there is also a present plasma membrane which is also called as cell membrane. It is a biological membrane. It is a semi-permeable membrane which is responsible for providing the rigidity to the cell, as well as what it does, it is semi-permeable. So it maintains the entry and exit of substances into the cell, so that the environment of cell remains viable for the cell to live. Alright, so this is plasma membrane. The cytoplasm is bounded by the cell membrane. Alright, now next is the cytoplasm. So cytoplasm is this gel-like or fluid appearance. What you are seeing over here is the cytoplasm. It is a gel-like fluid inside the cell. It is a medium for the chemical reaction. Alright, so in this cytoplasm, all the organelles are suspended, like ribosomes, mitochondria, and the Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum. All of these organelles are suspended into the cytoplasm only. Now talking about nucleus. So nucleus is a membrane-bound organelle. The membrane which is present outside the nucleus is called the nuclear membrane. Alright, it is responsible for containing the genetic information, the cell's chromosome in the form of DNA and RNA. So the nucleus controls and regulates the activities of the cell, such as growth and its metabolism, and it carries the genes which are responsible for passing out the hereditary information. Alright, so inside the nucleus there is a distinct structure which is called as nucleolus. Nucleolus is present in the nucleus of eukaryotic cells only. There are two types of cells, eukaryotic and the prokaryotic. Alright, so eukaryotic is the complex one and prokaryotic is the simple one. What my complex and simple implies is eukaryotic consists of the several levels present in the cell, while the prokaryotic is the simple cell which is present in the protist and bacteria, while eukaryotic cell is present in the human cell and animal cell. Alright, so nucleolus is present only in the eukaryotic cell. The function of the nucleolus is synthesis of the ribosomal RNA and biogenesis of the ribosomes. Moving on, now talking about the mitochondria. So we are studying the mitochondria from a very long term, and what we learn about mitochondria is this. Now, everyone should be aware about this, that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So mitochondria is also a membrane bound cell organelle which generate most of the chemical energy which is needed for the cell to perform various functions. So mitochondria stores energy in the form of ATP. Alright, so this is the structure of mitochondria. You can see here that it is a membrane bound cell organelle. Alright, in the mitochondria it is mitochondrial DNA is present, matrix granules are present, and ribosomes are present. Alright, so it is responsible for storing the energy in the form of ATPs. Now talking about the endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum is a tubular structure. Here you can see that the folded tubules are present. Alright, it is a cell-like, sac-like structure, and tubes are present in the cytoplasm of the cell. Alright, what is the function of endoplasmic reticulum? That it is responsible for the movement of proteins inside it. Alright, so the endoplasmic reticulum is of two types: smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not have the presence of ribosome, thus it is smooth, while the rough endoplasmic reticulum contains ribosomes at its outer surface. That's why it is rough. Alright, now moving on, talking about ribosomes. Ribosomes are the macromolecules which are found inside all the living cell, which performs the synthesis of protein. It is responsible for the synthesis of production of protein. Now talking about the Golgi complex, or called as Golgi apparatus. It is a membrane bound organelle found in eukaryotic cell. It is made up of series of flattened sacs, stacked pouches called the cisternae. These are the cisternae. Alright, so it is you can see here in this picture that folded structure you can see here, which are flattened and stacked one upon each other. So these structures are called as cisternae, and the whole organelle is called as Golgi apparatus. Now moving on and talking about the Lysosomes. Lysosomes are also called as the suicide bags. It is also a membrane-bound cell organelle which consists of several digestive enzymes. What does several digestive enzymes do? These are involved in the cell processes. They break down excess or worn out cell parts. So when there is excess breakdown or worn out of the cell parts, what does lysosomes do? Lysosomes break out, rupture in itself. So it is also called as the suicide bags of the cell. Whenever the toxic material is aggregated or gathered inside the cell, much of the toxic material is gathered, then the lysosomes rupture. Alright, so that is why the lysosomes are called as the suicide bags. Now talking about vacuole. Vacuole is also a membrane bound cell organelle. Vacuole is present in the animal cell, that is the eukaryotic cell. It is generally small and helps to manage the waste products inside the cell. Now talking about the cell wall, as I told you, cell wall is a layer which is present in almost all types of cell. What it is tough, flexible and sometimes rigid. It helps to provide rigidity to the cell. It is present outside the cytoplasm so that the cell organelles and the cytoplasm remain intact in the cell. Alright, so it provides structural support and protection to the cell. It is also semi-permeable, so it maintains the entry and exit of the substances into the cells. It allows only certain substances to enter inside the cell, and so that the toxic substances cannot enter inside the cell. Alright, now is the centrioles. Centrioles are paired barrel-shaped organelles. This is, you can see in the picture, the cylindrical shaped structures. These are the centrioles. It is present in the cytoplasm near the nuclear envelope. Alright, so it play a role in organizing microtubules that serve as the cell's skeletal system. It provides the rigidity to the cell. Now talking about the different functions that are performed by the cell itself. Alright, so first function is that cell performs is transportation. It performs transportation in two ways. First one is the active transport and second one is the passive transport. Talking about active transport in detail. So what is actually active transport? So active transport is the movement of molecules across a cell membrane through the use of cellular energy. In active transport, what happens? The molecules move from a region of lower concentration to a region of high concentration against the concentration gradient with the use of energy. Alright, so why active transport is performed? Active transport is performed by the cells to accumulate important molecules, vital molecules that are needed for the body to perform its various functions such as glucose and amino acids. Active transport powered by ATP is known as primary active transport. Alright, now talking about how active transport works. The transmembrane proteins are proteins that cross a cell membrane. They usually have one or more transmembrane domains that cross through the membrane lipid bilayer, as well as domains that bind with ligands inside and outside of the membrane. The protein recognizes the molecule or ion to be transported and passes it through its transmembrane domain. So this is how the active transport works. Now there are two types of active transports. First one is the primary active transport and second one is the secondary active transport. Now what is primary active transport? Most primary active transport is carried by transmembrane ATPases, the enzyme that crosses the cell membrane. The sodium potassium ATPase enzyme is found in all animal cells. It maintains cell membrane potential by pumping the 3 sodium ions out of the cell for every 2 potassium ions it moves into the cells. Alright, So this is the example of primary active transport, the sodium potassium pump that is regulated inside the body. In the picture you can also see there is the description of the sodium and potassium pump which is maintained inside the body. Alright, now talking about the secondary active transport. Secondary active transport is also called as coupled transport. It is not coupled to ATP, but alright, electrochemical potential is built up by pumping ions into or out of the cell. This potential can provide energy for metabolism. Understand it with the help of an example. Sodium ions are transported across the plasma membrane, and the electrochemical gradient powers active transport of another ion or molecule. The hydrogen pumps build up an electrochemical gradient of hydrogen ions in the cells to power cellular respiration. This is the secondary active transport. Now moving on and talking about the passive transport, the second type of transport performed by the cell. So what is passive transport? It is the movement of ions and other molecule substances within the cell along the concentration gradient without any external energy. What happens in the active transport? The molecules are moving from region of lower concentration to region of higher concentration against the concentration gradient. But in the passive transport, the substances are moving along with the concentration gradient, alright, without any external energy. It is known as passive diffusion or the passive transport. Alright, now passive transport is of four types: the simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, filtration, and osmosis. We will talk about all these types in details. Number one is the simple diffusion. So to know simple diffusion, we should know what diffusion is actually. So diffusion is the movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration. But as it is the part of passive transport, the movement of substances will take place along with the concentration gradient only. Alright. So this is simple diffusion, where the movement of particles are moving from higher concentration to lower concentration. Alright. So the difference in concentration of the two areas is termed as concentration gradient. The higher concentration minus lower concentration gives you the concentration gradient. Diffusion occurs in liquids and gases because their particles move randomly from one place to another, because these molecules are not tightly bound and they have the capability to move randomly. Alright, so it is very important process which is required by all living organisms throughout their life processes. Alright, so this is simple diffusion. Let's understand the simple diffusion with the help of example. Example of simple diffusion is movement of water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, ethanol and urea inside the cell membrane. So this is the example of simple diffusion. We will cover the facilitated diffusion and the other types of passive transport and the cell mechanism in part 2 of this video. So stay tuned for the second